Good evening, everyone. My name is William Iannuzzi. I'm President of the Board of Education, and we are about to reconvene the public session of the meeting. Colleagues, can I get a motion and second to reconvene the public session of the meeting?
So moved, Ross.
Second, Lewis.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Colleagues, can I get a motion and second to accept minutes of the Board of Education regular meeting held on December 4th, 2025, and accept minutes of the Board of Education special meeting held on December 18th, 2025, as submitted by the clerk and secretary to the Board of Education?
So move, Lewis.
Second, Jacob.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. First up on our agenda tonight are our announcements by Board of Education members. Do any of my colleagues have any announcements they would like to make?
This is a very brief one. The funds has started their annual gala planning. And so tickets are live and on their Instagram, Facebook, website, etc. So feel free to get your ticket for the gala, which is upcoming in March.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Anyone else? Ms. Williams?
Yes, I would like to say good evening, New Rochelle, and welcome back to school in 2026. May the rest of the school year be even better than the beginning of the school year.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And I just have a very brief one as well. I was appointed to the New York City of New York's 250th anniversary committee. I'll be working with 12 other members and celebrating this anniversary of New Rochelle. All right, great. So next up on our agenda is our superintendent's update. So Dr. Reynolds, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you very much, President Iannuzzi, through the board, to all of our members here in the audience, and to our families at home. Welcome to 2026. Every time I say a different year in the year 2000, I think of Y2K, and I know I'm dating myself, and I can't believe that we're here. But we would like to celebrate the New Rochelle Fund for Educational Excellence is proud to announce 4 outstanding New Rochelle High School seniors who will be honored with Student Achievement Awards at the Foundation's Gala on Thursday, March 5th at the Surf Club on the Sound. The Arts and Culture Award will be awarded to our very own Harmony Hopwood, who made history as the youngest youth poet laureate of Westchester County. She is a 3-time gold medalist in the NAACP's Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics, also known as ACSO, program, and serves as the president of both the Poetry Club and NAACP Youth Council. Harmony plans to study film in college. The David A. Garfinkel Citizenship Award will be awarded to Kyra Mulrain, and she is a student researcher for the Air of Truth exhibit at the New Rochelle High School Museum of Arts and Culture, and now serves on the city's Ecology and Natural Resources Advisory Committee. Kyra plans to major in international relations. The Eric Tutera Sports Leadership Award is awarded to Sam Cave, and he is a 4-year varsity swim team member, 2-year captain, and 3-time MVP All-League and All-Section honor, and will be competing in the States on March 6th. He mentors youth athletes while excelling academically as a National Honor Society member and a National Merit Scholarship Program commended student. Sam will swim Division I at American University. The Science and Technology Award will go to Corey Sillenfrond, the class of 2026 valedictorian. He earned first place in mathematics at the International Science and Engineering Fair, is an accomplished clarinetist, selected for NYSSMA's All-State Symphony Orchestra, serves as president of the Tri-M Music Honor Society, and volunteers as a music teacher and math tutor. Corey will attend the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to study mathematics and music. So if you would like to go and celebrate with our students, please visit www.nredfund.org for your tickets. Please keep in mind that early bird prices are ending on February 25th. Last Friday, the New Rochelle High School girls varsity track team had an incredible showing at the Hispanic Games, finishing the spring medley relay with a time of 4 minutes, 4.80 seconds, and that is 18 seconds ahead of the second place finishers. The team took first place in the state and in the country. We would like to congratulate our junior Alexis Smith, sophomore Elisa Crisp, junior Olivia Smith, and sophomore Olivia Solomon. You make us all proud. We'd also like to congratulate one of our employees. Congratulations to the New Rochelle High School Athletic Department's Judy Patron on being awarded the Judith A. Martins Secretarial Award of Excellence from the New York State Athletic Administrators Association. This award recognizes a secretary of an athletic administrator who has demonstrated outstanding contributions to local athletics. Ms. Patron will receive her award at the New York State Athletic Association's conference in Saratoga Springs in March. And finally, all district offices and buildings will be closed on Monday, January 19th, 2026, in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day. And all schools will have a half day of school for students on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026, for Superintendent's Conference Day. And with that, Mr. President, I relinquish the microphone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reynolds. Next up on our agenda tonight are discussion items. We have two. The first one being Strategic Student Support Services Part 1. Dr. Reynolds, I'll throw it back over to you to set the stage.
Thank you. Just for time purposes, I will introduce our next team to the podium from here. Every year, we share with you the great accomplishments and the challenges that we have in each of our departments. This year, we are beginning our conversation with the board and the public with our Student Support Services Department. It is important that we keep in mind that this year we're seeing a shift in responsibilities as it relates to our Student Support Services Department. I should say, not department, division. So the division has subsumed the responsibilities of special education this year. That was transferred from our curriculum and instruction division over to our student support services. Last year, we heard from the community. We presented our entire division's accomplishments and their record of achievement in one evening. And we heard from the community that it was a bit too much to receive all at once. So this year, we are splitting our presentation in two. So tonight's presentation will focus solely on special education and the supports therein. And tonight we are going to be led by our two team leaders for special education, our Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services, Dr. Gail Joyner, and our Director for Special Education, Ms. Michelle O'Brien. So we bring Dr. Joyner to the podium at this time.
Good evening. To our Board President, William Iannuzzi, Board members, Superintendent Dr. Reynolds, and community. Joining me tonight is Michelle O'Brien, our Pre-K-12 Director of Special and Alternative Education. And tonight, we are pleased to present to you an update on the status of the implementation of our action plan designed to address the recommendations lifted in the evaluation of our special education program conducted by PCG, our public consulting group. Tonight's presentation, we will begin by setting the context, presenting our implementation roadmap, and from there we will share a status update that includes our special ed survey results for the last 2 years, and lastly, we will address how we will move forward. As it is our custom, it is important that we frame the context by starting with our why. We remain committed to our mission and vision and providing a fair and equitable education for every student every day. It is important that we continue to focus on the whole child, approach as we support the development of our students' identity, belonging, and agency. The improvement of our special education services to our students with individual education plans, IEPs, is directly connected to all 4 directions of our strategic roadmap. To that end, Special Education Action Plan is in alignment with our strategic roadmap. This visual that you see in front of you is by Cooper Ryder and his team, and it offers a positive approach to change. The appreciative inquiry model is what it is reflected from, which lends itself to the cyclical process of continuous improvement. During the initial phase, we assessed what we currently have. We analyzed quantitative and qualitative data and acknowledged the great work that is already being done. And I just want to publicly say thank you to the special education team for the work that you have done and will continue to do. And we look forward to collaborating to co-design that which we desire, with a focus on systems, structures, processes, and practices to support our work. This visual representation of the tree shows the interconnectedness of each department within the division, of student support services. The foundation of our work lies at the roots of the tree image, where you see our strategic roadmap objectives, which, our team will present at the next board meeting. As Dr. Reynolds alluded to, we have broken it up into 2 sections. The student support services team is the base, the trunk, which is located in the middle of the tree. Each division within the department is represented by tree branches, and we work individually and collectively to support the growth and development of our students, staff, and families, which are represented by the leaves and the beautiful fruit it bears, our successful students. I would like to publicly, again, thank this team in advance for the hard work and heart work that will be done this year. I'm going to quickly introduce our team. We have Ms. Millicent Lee, and she is joining us this evening, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Ms. Leah Ligovino Freitas, our Director of School Counseling, who is doing a presentation at the high school, Mr. Nate Adams, our Program Coordinator for My Brother's Keeper, My Sister Keep Her, and the Liaison for the Youth Justice Equity Program. Ms. Christina Gobaum, our lead nurse, and Dr. Casaro, our interim medical director. And now I extend a warm welcome to our Director of Pre-K-12 Special and Alternative Education, Ms. Michelle O'Brien, who will come forward at this time to share the special education leadership structure of support and walk us through the implementation roadmap and survey results.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I am compelled to express my appreciation and acknowledgement of Dr. Roberts, who led our department for the last few years, the members of the board, my colleagues, our students, and community stakeholders for your continued attention to and support of the special education department. The insight each of you offer from your varying vantage points is an essential part of the driving force that provides energy, direction, and consistency, turning small actions into significant progress for continued improvement as your invaluable input illuminates a path for growth, wisdom, and excellence. As the Director of Special Education and Special and Alternative Education, overseeing our pre-K-12 district-wide program, I do not lead this department alone. This slide provides a glimpse of the work my leadership team, the Assistant Directors of Special Education, do as an overview. I say glimpse because a slide can only capture a sampling of the vast work they do on a daily basis. The denoted feeder pattern structure was implemented during the 2024-25 school year in support of a more seamless, comprehensive, and robust program for our students with disabilities, ensuring a more targeted and coherent approach towards teaching and learning in our schools and classrooms, as well as a stronger alignment of systems, practices, processes, and supports. This begins with 1 assistant director supporting the Committee on Preschool Education, Pre-K2, Barnard, and Ward. When these students leave Barnard, they attend one of the 6 remaining elementary schools as indicated by the arrow, originating from Barnard and extending the 2 K-5 boxes, demonstrating that Barnard students feed into the 6 elementary schools after 2nd grade. The following assistant directors support Columbus, Jefferson, and Trinity. The next supports Isaac E. Young and Webster, and the following supports Albert Leonard Middle School and Davis. At the conclusion of students' tenure in the elementary and middle school arenas, as indicated again by the arrows, students matriculate to the high school, including Huguenot Academy. 1 assistant director continues to support this grade band. Our team remains committed to providing improved practices and services. Before moving on, I want to publicly thank them for their devotion, commitment, and to the success and safety of our most vulnerable students. At this time, we will bring back to your attention the implementation roadmap of our work aligned to our self-imposed audit of special education designed to address these areas of focus and recommendation. From there, sharing a status update that includes our SPED survey results for the last 2 years, and lastly, addressing how we will move forward. We also want to bring back to your attention to the purpose of why the evaluation was conducted, which was to identify areas of strength and, more importantly, areas of growth that would inform the development and implementation of a cogent strategic action plan designed to improve practice and elevate student achievement. This action plan is the focus of our update. Let's begin by revisiting the recommendations yielded from the evaluation. Displayed on this slide are areas of focus and aligned number of recommendations. In row 1 are the MTSS, the multi-tiered system of supports, specifically focusing on 4 recommendations. Special education referral, assessment, and eligibility practices, area of focus consisting of 4 recommendations, 5 to 8. Specialized services and inclusive practices addressing 7 recommendations, and CSE meetings and IEP development with 5 recommendations. In row 2, the following areas of focus are noted: inclusive community addressing 2 recommendations, strategy, organization, and enact reporting containing 4 recommendations, family and community engagement comprising of 6 recommendations, and human capital with 1 recommendation. The third row displays the last 3 areas of focus, which are data reporting consisting of 2 recommendations, policy and guide documents with 1 recommendation, and lastly, the staffing allocation model containing 1 recommendation. Overall, the 11 areas of focus comprising of 37 recommendations are the drivers of our action plan. You may access the comprehensive evaluation report using the tiny URL code or the QR code displayed on this slide. At this time, we will bring back to your attention the implementation roadmap again, or no, I'm sorry. At this time, we will bring back to your attention the focus of the recommendations. Being mindful and to ensure that the comprehensive scope of the work is done with intentionality, we were very strategic in creating a multi-year implementation timeline, noting when the 37 recommendations would be addressed. We have approximated 5 years for all of them to be addressed with fidelity. Reflected on the slide is a high-level overview of the implementation over the 5 years. This year at a glance denotes a specific implementation phase of each recommendation. I draw your attention to the legend on the bottom of the slide, which signifies the 3 phases of the work. P for planning, X indicating starting the implementation, or C, continuing monitoring of the work. For example, you will notice that the recommendation number 1 is denoted with an X in the first column, entitled Foundational Year, and will continue over the next 4 years as denoted in the letter column C in the following columns. To view the timeline in its entirety with all recommendations, you are welcome to use the tiny URL or the QR code on the bottom of this slide. To measure our success, we are using the 10 KPIs, which include both quantitative and qualitative measures, as well as state and district measures. Next to each KPI, key performance indicator, is the measure that is being used following our baseline. And in the last column are the end of plan matrix, specifying what we are aiming to achieve at the end of what we are doing, what we are using to monitor the implementation of the action steps over the duration of the plan. Now I will provide you with a status update to celebrate our accomplishments, share our current work, as well as refresh our memory of the tremendous work ahead of us. 2023-24 November to June served as our foundational year. Reflected on this slide are those recommendations that were a focus during the 2023-24 foundational year. At this time, I will provide you with a status highlighting what was accomplished last school year and our scope of the work this year. This slide illustrates our focus for the 2024-25 year, demonstrating where we're planning, continuing, implementing, as you can see on the screen. It is important to celebrate accomplishments both small and large. As you know, last year was our second year of implementing our action plan. As Dr. Joyner had said, it was a result of a district's self-imposed special education evaluation. We want to share with you the work that was accomplished. Please note that as I highlight these accomplishments, I want you to listen for themes of collaboration and consistency. I will lift 3 specific accomplishments to your attention. The first accomplishment I would like to highlight is bullet 1. Further studied and developed a toolkit to support specially designed instruction, SDI, which was paramount as this increases the provision of strategic instruction in service to the students with individualized needs and learning styles as reflected in their IEPs. The development of the toolkit was a collaborative effort engaging special education teachers across the district, to whom I am grateful for their diligence and commitment. Their tremendous work fosters equity of instruction across the district while also norming practices. The second accomplishment I would like to highlight is bullet 5, addressing the initiation of a robust, multi-year professional learning plan based on the needs of identified in the reports developed by PCG, targeted to different audience, such as not limited to general educators, special educators, related service personnel, aides, and parents. Illuminating the value in collective knowledge and continuous learning. When we share a position and a posture of being a lifelong learner, we not only benefit from the knowledge that's gained, but we also model for our students the value and importance of learning and continuous learning. Third, but certainly not least, I would like to highlight bullet 4. Developed a plan to begin the expansion of integrated co-teaching, ICT. Having a plan inclusive of required enabling conditions is a game changer for the district. I hope as you comb through the accomplishments on the slides and heard the three highlighted ones, you notice that we are endeavoring to be transparent, collaborative, and to implement consistent practices. These accomplishments serve as the foundation on which we are building this year's body of work, as illustrated on the next slide. As mentioned, during the 2024-25 school year, in collaboration with our evaluating partner, PCG, we researched the expansion and developed a plan of expanding from half-day ICT to full-day ICT, and began an implementation plan as a proof of concept of full-day ICT for 3rd and 4th grade at Columbus Elementary School for this current school year. While offering students access to a full-day ICT program, it allows us to continue to refine our district plan for expansion across all schools. What gets measured gets done is a phrase that is echoed throughout our district. Using this slide, I bring to your attention our 10 key performance indicators with data to measure where we began in 2023-24, noting our progress in the next column in purple, and the end of plan target listed in the final column. Focusing on the center column in purple, the data is provided with the target for the 24-25 year listed in parentheses. I am pleased to note for the first indicator, increased student performance in literacy for all students by 18%, we met our target for students with disabilities rising from 17 to 20%. Our target for that year was 20%. We rose to 20. In contrast to the first indicator, our second indicator, increased student performance in math for all students by 17 percentage points and for students with disabilities by 17 percentage points. Our student with disabilities performance, similar to the general education peers, remained the same as previously measured. Looking at the next indicator, while considering the district's overall percentage of students with disabilities rising from 17 to 20% this year, it is not surprising that the number of students referred to special education increased rather than decreased, as the classification confirms their need for a referral for consideration by the Committee on Special Education. As a department, in school teams, and in collaboration with our New York State Ed partners, we continue to audit the quality of our IEPs and have seen improvement in this area. With the success of improving the quality of IEPs and provision of professional learning for our team, it is disappointing but not surprising that the percentage of meetings that adhere to the state mandated timeline also decreased rather than increased, as with the increase of students referred and ultimately classified to receive services, the staff required to support this demand decreased during the 24-25 school year to 82.7%. However, I believe that our efforts for improvement is reflected in the reporting of the next indicator. Increase the percentage of CSC stakeholders who report favorably about the process, appropriateness of IEP, quality of program, engagement of participants, and resources available. In this area, we rose from 73% to 80% in favorability. Again, our district's commitment is reflected in the next KPI. Increase the percentage of students with an IEP who spend 80% or more of their day in the general education setting. While we did not reach our target in this area, we did increase. Unfortunately, we were not as successful in the next KPI, reduce the percentage of students with IEPs educated in a separate setting outside of New Rochelle School District. Rather than decreasing the number of students attending schools in the district, we increased to 10%, which is a stark contrast to the next indicator, which rose by 10%, surpassing our target by 6%. Increase the percentage of stakeholders who report favorably of the department culture and climate, elements including efficacy of professional learning, collaborative opportunities, customer service, standards of service, inclusivity. This KPI's results signify that we are progressing in the right direction. Our final key performance indicator listed increase the percentage of parents and families who report favorably regarding the availability, accessibility, and quality of resources such as guides, trainings, training materials, website, available, and accessibility, also surpassed our target by 2%. The next portion of our presentation will continue in depth to reveal the perception of our stakeholders as solicited through our annual stakeholder survey. In our ongoing commitment to improvement and enhancement, we launched our annual stakeholder survey designed to gather valuable input and feedback from students in grades 6 to 12, parents and staff, including teachers, support staff, and administrators, regarding the programs and services provided by our special education department. We will review the results on the next few slides. With participation being voluntary and anonymous, as noted on this slide, 3,762 stakeholders received the survey and 49% responded. To guide our strategic work moving forward, we examined the aggregated data for each stakeholder as a means of capturing their perspective. The survey asked the stakeholders to respond to various statements using a Likert scale, ranging from strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. As reflected of the 1,841 total respondents, 73% rated their respective statements favorably by indicating strongly agree or agree. Specifically, 80% of parents, 68% of students, and 72% of staff responded favorably. As this is an annual survey, it is our goal to increase participation and favorability every year. We would be remiss if we did not pause to express our deepest appreciation to all the stakeholders who took the time to respond to the survey. And I must say, in conversations with the state, having this large of a volume of response is not typical. As a reminder, this survey is one of the measures being used to assess our effectiveness in meeting particular key performance indicators, KPIs. On this slide are the 3 specific KPIs to which our survey is aligned. The parent survey addressed all 3 KPIs, while the students and staff focused on only the 2 first. Reflected on this slide are favorable response rates of the various stakeholder groups indicating strongly agree or agree per aligned KPI. Overall, rising from the previous year, 80% of our stakeholders reported favorably to the first KPI. To this year, addressing the CSE process, appropriateness of IEPs, quality of programs, engagement of participants, and resources available. In regard to the second KPI, with 10% increase, 79% of our stakeholders reported favorably about the special education department's climate and culture. And lastly, 84% of our parents reported favorably regarding the availability, accessibility, and quality of resources, our third KPI, which is, again, an increase in favorability. We will now highlight some of the feedback from each of the stakeholder groups, noting the greatest and least favorable items. I want to pause for a moment to orient you to the formatting on this next few slides. Throughout the portion of this presentation, You may note that the bolded items were not previously a part of the top 5 favorability items in the 2024 school year. Bolded on this slide is and new to the top 5 favorable items is my input is considered during CSE meetings. The favorability for this response rose from 91 to 94%. In contrast, the statements marked with an asterisk were listed in the 23-24 in the top 5, but not this year. The asterisk is next to this last statement indicated, I am provided with a copy of my child's IEP. Although this item did not remain in the top 5, the favorability response rose from 91% to 92%. Overall, the favorable themes of our parent surveys are families valuing caring staff, inclusive opportunities, and individualized attention. Families are noticing improvements in the IEP meeting process and communication in some areas, which is progress worth celebrating. Indicated on this slide is the area where growth is needed. With the following themes being illuminated, parents continue to ask for more consistent communication, better clarity around services and progress, stronger accountability for IEP implementation. Our data indicates that parents want to feel warm, informed, supported, and partnered with, and receive reactive responses and not being left to feel uncertain about their engagement. Parents want to be included and partnered with. On this slide, we are noticing our students' responses. We have to note an increase of student participation in the 2024-25 survey from 54% the previous year to 90% this year. We have data to illuminate students' voice, which affirms the importance of inclusive environments, student empowerment, and mental health supports, which is highlighted with the new addition to our top 5 favorable items. I can talk about schoolwork that is easy or hard for me during the meeting, rising from 58% to 86%. For clarity, the meetings that the students are referencing are their CSE meetings to discuss their IEPs. The data reflects that students feel welcome and supported and are largely satisfied with their services. Continuing with our student voice, the data indicates students want smaller, less distracting environments, clearer understanding of what their IEP means, more access to social emotional support. It is important to note on this slide the item added to the top 5 due to tremendous increase in the student response. I can talk about things I enjoy during my meeting, rising from 51% to 80%. So we had an increase of student participation and an increase in that response. CSEs are mandated to invite secondary students to their meetings. However, we must ensure that their meetings are also welcoming and affirming and to engage the students. I want to acknowledge the work of our school teams at the secondary level, as this response is evidence that they're doing the necessary work to empower and include students. Our staff noted our areas of strength and their favorable responses illustrated on this slide. Appreciation for professional learning and opportunities to collaborate, recognition that we are supporting inclusive practices and quality IEPs, as well as staff acknowledgement of improvements and our responsiveness. As a district, we maintain a posture of seeking continuous improvement. Excellence has no ceiling. Our staff indicated in areas in which we need to grow with persistent feedback around staffing challenges, programs and services being stretched, consistency of expectations and implementation across schools, efficiency in IEP processes, communication, and access to materials. Staff also raised concerns about equity in services and decision-making. This reinforces our focus on system-level solutions, not individualized or siloed work. Our key takeaway from this: our three stakeholder groups are aligned around the following themes: communication, consistency, and capacity drive trust and success. I now turn this over to Dr. Joyner.
I'll give you guys the cliff notes, okay, for the short answers, I promise. But I just want to acknowledge two of the fantastic five. They know who they are. So Michelle, we want to acknowledge our Assistant Director, Ms. Clara Reyes, and Ms. Cameron. Thank you for being here. And I call them the Fantastic Five. It's our running joke, but I love each and every one of them. So thank you for what you do. So the open-ended questions were designed to align with the specific key performance indicator for each of our stakeholders. We'll begin with the summaries of open-ended parent responses, but as we review this qualitative data, you will notice the alignment between the data that was just presented by Ms. O'Brien. We shared this data, the open-ended questions, as well as the quantitative data with the district and site-based leadership. They engaged in an activity and submitted recommendations to our team for our consideration. So it wasn't just look at the data, we gave it to them and they gave us some feedback. So the survey responses were recorded as favorable and least favorable. We just listed a few because we didn't want to go through all of them. It's quite a few that we received. But on the favorable side, some parents expressed satisfaction. Others acknowledged inclusive after-school programs and valued the individual support that their child received. On the least favorable side, parents reported issues with communication, which included lack of timely responses and delays in delivery of services. Some families are seeking more resources and communication in Spanish and hybrid training and information sessions. We appreciate the thoughtful feedback provided by our families and will incorporate all recommendations submitted by our school teams as well. Our district leadership as well. On the student survey, the open-ended questions, we listed a little different. We didn't put this side by side. We are going to show you both of their slides. So on the favorable, the summaries of our open-ended student responses, you can see students felt welcome, supported, and set up for success. While they appreciated their current accommodations, they also expressed the desire for independence, resulting in requesting fewer accommodations and more autonomy. So that's something for us to think about as we go into the process moving forward. Summaries for our students for the least favorable open-ended responses. As you see, one area of growth includes providing smaller classes with less distractions. Students are seeking to be better educated about their IEPs, which we can see is beginning to happen based on the survey data we received last year that Michelle just presented. They also highlighted the need for mental health resources and someone to talk to. Lastly, they are seeking improved communication between home and school. Our staff open-ended survey responses, similar to the parents, we listed them side by side. And it lifted a few favorable and least favorable responses. Our staff values ongoing professional learning opportunities and sessions held after school and in the summer. Members of the team appreciate discussing ways to best meet the needs of our students. Some of the least favorable responses include a call for more transparency and support for our non-English speaking families. There is a need to enhance the consistency of programming across buildings and provide facilitators with training to increase effectiveness throughout our team. So yes, I'm not going to read all of these. You can see them. Those are our areas of focus for this year. There are many more, but this is what we are focusing on based on our action plan. So moving forward, we just wanted to leave you with a glimpse of our next segment of the work. It's really critical that we enhance the growth mindset and leading programs to support students with IEPs, create school-wide opportunities for students with IEPs to be part of the school community, set a clear vision, and engage in action planning focused on student success, operational excellence, and customer service. Realign the roles, responsibilities, and structure of the Office of Special Education to enhance responsiveness and efficiency to meet student, teacher, and parent needs. We will continue to build the capacity of our staff. We are poised to finalize and implement our family communications plan. We have made some shifts in the CPSC and CSC process and other practices that will support consistency and coherence. But lastly, as we maintain a posture of continuous improvement, we will continue to seek and garner feedback via our stakeholder surveys and by engaging with the Parent Steering Committee, who have been forthcoming with great insights. And again, I mentioned earlier, those shifts in the CSC process are critical, and other processes that we have in place to begin to finalize. So this concludes our presentation, and we thank you for your attention. And at this time, we welcome your questions.
Colleagues, does anyone have any questions or comments they have like to ask? Ms. Clayton?
Well, first I'd like to say that you must have been reading our minds. We wanted a deep dive and an analytical understanding, a better understanding of how to support our youth with disabilities. They are a critical part of the school district's success, and we want to see them thrive as all of our students. So this was very helpful, a good, leading map for us to, examine. And I really hope that all of the different groups in New Rochelle, the SEPTA and New Rochelle Funds for Excellence and the boards and whatnot, we partner a little bit more as a team. So it's not just, one man on the island trying to do all this very important work. I had a couple of questions. It's probably redundant, but SEPTA, how involved is SEPTA in some of this work that you do?
So glad you asked that question, because some of our SEPTA members are here tonight in support of special education. We're in active communication, texting, calling, emailing, and so forth in support of our parents. So sometimes parents don't feel comfortable reaching out directly to any of us, but they will reach out to SEPTA, and SEPTA actively gets involved in encouraging parents and partnering with them to reach out and help them navigate New Rochelle. So I appreciate, and we, myself and our leadership, attend SEPTA meetings and support SEPTA, and even offerings to what we can present to the community to engage and increase the knowledge of our parents.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what SEPTA is,
Oh.
yeah, sorry.
Special Education PTA. So it's for all schools together. We have a PTA just for special ed.
Also, it's noted that the numbers of the students have been steadily climbing these last 10 years. Just to make sure that the community is also looking for ways to support that. Do we have a data, like kind of like in our school data, we have sort of a matrix that says ages, and is there something that could kind of give parents and different people that kind of scope, so we know what exactly, what does that mean? When you say the numbers are increasing, is it starting at the very early Barnard age, or, sorry, but does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that question. All of our data as it relates to our student populations, regardless of whether they're special education or general education, are readily available to any member of the public on the New York State Education Department website. The data is updated annually. As you may recognize, over the last few years, the district has worked to effectively house our own data warehouse. So a lot of the information that you are requesting, including how many students fit into which student profile, which category based on grade level is actually available on our own district website.
Thank you for that. Excellent. Thank you for that hard work and that deep dive.
Great. Ms. Ross?
Thank you for the presentation, and I really appreciate the key performance indicators and having that slide. A couple of things that stood out to me, and that's, I think, slide 22, was the reading literacy for all students, including those with for all students, and then also those with students with disabilities with IEP, that we actually met our targets this year. So thank you. I commend you guys for reaching that, because I think that's a great milestone that we're actually starting to see progress. I do have a couple of questions on the areas that we didn't meet targets, and specifically, there's a couple of them. One is on the math, right? Looks like we didn't sort of meet targets. What's our plan so that we will eventually kind of get to our 2027, 28 if we know that we haven't sort of met them for this year? Like, how are we planning to attack that going forward for this school year and beyond?
Okay, so part of it is as we're working, and as I say, we're active learners and engaged in looking at the data and trying to figure out the whys behind. And some of the work in other areas support this. So as we shared that the SDI toolkit was developed last year in collaboration with our teams, we look at how successful was that tool and what do we need to do to enhance that. Additionally, in our area of professional learning, we look at what's needed, what additional learning and support staff may need to support this improvement to meet our target and actually surpass our target. So those are some of the items that we're working on currently.
Also, please keep in mind that what's reflected here for our students with disabilities is also the story for our general education students,
right.
right? So this work is not done in isolation as a special education, I'm going to use the air quotes of project. This is very much integrated into our curriculum and instruction, so the two departments work very closely together. What we do is we actually analyze the types of skills that we were deficient in based on the assessments that our students take. And that is what we try to shore up each year in our instruction. So based on the analysis of actual student performance, based on, and we look at it from different aspects. We look at it from a building perspective. We also look at it from a grade level perspective to see what skills are necessary for us to build on in alignment with the New York State standards. That is incorporated into our general education offerings and then replicated at a higher level on our special education offerings. I'll associate it this way. The movement that we're seeing in our reading instruction and our reading performance is, again, not isolated to special education.
Right.
It's happening in general education. And that's very much a testament to our curriculum and instruction department and the move to bringing those quality skills that were only offered to special education students to our general education masses. So when we determined to make Art and Gillingham available to all of our students, I've always said, what you do for the least of our students, all of our students will benefit from. So we're starting to see that, and that's what we have to start doing in mathematics a little bit better.
And so I guess just on that, and I might have missed it, is have we figured out the plan, or we're still figuring out the whys as to how? Okay.
It's a work in progress.
Got it. Okay. And then my other question is, and I'll skip to the one, I have a few, but I'll just skip to the other one that I think is important, is the, because I recall hearing this throughout our conversations, is students who have IEPs, having them spend more of their days in the general education setting, that is something that we as a district want to do. It's better for the student. It's sort of best practice overall, as well. And there's two of those that are here. And in both of those cases, it looks like we haven't met our targets either. And so is it the function of some of the students we're getting are more higher need, or is it that we are still kind of working through our process to get them back into the general education setting?
it's not so much the design of our student population as much as it is the ability to offer those programs. So we don't have enough classes that have the availability of the least restrictive environment, which is why we are working with the state specifically through our evaluation to start to build more of those classrooms. So when we're looking to expand our inclusion ICT integrated co-teaching classes across the district, and making sure that they're available in each of our buildings as opposed to just pockets of our buildings. We're trying to meet that target by opening up more of those classrooms. So the more classrooms we open up, the more offerings we'll have for our students. And that is what we take into consideration when we have our CSEs and we talk about the available environments for the students. The more environments we have, the more students we can offer it to.
And is it at any particular level? Is it more at the elementary school or middle school or high school, or is it across the board?
It's across the board.
Across the board. Okay. And then the last question that I just had was I think it was the review of the state mandated timelines and making sure that we're kind of meeting those. Sorry, I can't see. No, the randomly selected IEPs was that one. Is that an audit that we do ourselves? And we're kind of grading ourselves in that audit? Is that what that is? Okay. Okay. And, okay, thank you.
Alana? Ms. Jacobs, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, echoing everyone's thanks. It was a really helpful deep dive, and as more of a novice to the panel here, I just learned a lot tonight, so thank you. An observation is some really great wins and then some setbacks, as you pointed out. I think we just talked about some of the scores that were lower or didn't meet their targets, and there are a couple of others, including just meeting, IEP timelines, delivery, and the percentage of students going out of district, which I think all plays into one of the three themes you noted at the end, which is capacity, right? So I guess along the lines of that observation, as a board, we're here to support the district in continuing its progress in this area. And I know we're going to spend another session talking about the roadmap, but we are here to hear your needs in that area to meet the capacity and how to build that up and make that a priority. So a statement in a question, if you want to, sort of give us those needs, but just putting that statement out there because that pops out to me as big areas of capacity will not be, we can't increase the growth in those numbers without increasing some of those tools, and one of which is just capacity and staff. And along the lines of the positives, it's clear that everyone in the department is, I think, winning in the surveys and the impressions of working with families and students. And my sense is that you're giving a lot of attention, you're giving the attention you can to the students and their families, but there's only so much people can do.
So I first want to say thank you for that acknowledgement. And I want to say thank you to the board because when we meet and we discuss the concerns and what's going on in special education, you really do lean in and ask the questions that need to be asked. And that's support as well to the department, that maintaining accountability.
And since you asked, our next presentation, of course, is going to go back to the pathway of budgeting as it relates to next year. We will always ask for more. We will always ask for more resources. We will always ask for more resources, and the most important resource that we can have are our people, right? The more classroom spaces and facilities that we're able to build that will honor the true sense of education for students, the better off the district will be as it relates to special education. Keeping in mind that the perfect classroom setting is an ICT classroom, right? And this is Corey's opinion. Having been an ICT general education classroom teacher, I know that having a partner full day that has a different perspective that can meet the needs of students who think differently in the moment, again, not reserved just for students with IEPs, but reserved to work with students who see things a little bit differently than the way the general education practitioner is presenting it, is a perfect classroom setting. It's the state's desire that every classroom is an ICT classroom. Will we ever be there? I don't think that any school district will ever be able to afford it. But the closer we get to that type of an environment for our students to meet their needs and to make those spaces available, the less we have to ask for variances related to our more specified classroom settings, our 8-1-2s, our 12-1-1s, the better we will be poised to honor the needs of our students. So again, we will always ask for more.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback off on that question for a second? I remember correctly when I first started on the board 7 years ago, 10% of our student body was classified as student with disabilities. Last year, it was 19%. So that's like a 9% increase in 7 years. How are we dealing with an influx of new students who are coming with IEPs from maybe from other districts that we have to honor, as well as um, dealing with an environment where we are struggling to find educators who work in special education?
President Iannuzzi, I thank you very much for raising those points. So the landscape, not just in New Rochelle, not just in Westchester, not just in New York State, but in this country, and I'll probably say nationwide, is we do not have enough certified teachers. Then we do not have nearly enough certified special educators. The number is shrinking, and as a matter of fact, one of my colleagues shared with me this morning that one of our local schools that was probably one of the highest producers of educators that stayed within this region. I won't name the school, but they're closing their school of education. They announced today that, not today, this week, that this is their last class of education students that they will be accepting on the undergrad level as well as the graduate level. So we're finding that institutions that prepare teachers are closing. So what we are seeing, and what we're seeing specifically here in New Rochelle, is we're leveling off with our student population overall. It's a bit of a dip and an increase at waivers, but we're seeing a tremendous increase in students coming to us with special education needs, IEP needs. In addition to that, we're seeing an increase in I don't want to use the word severity, in the level of intricacy of their need of IEPs, right? So more restrictive placements are actually coming in. And when we say we're receiving these students, the question was asked tonight, no, we're just not taking people from all over the place. They're moving into the district. And again, they move into districts where they know there's a strong special education program, right? But then with the budget crisis under which we are currently faced, we also had to reduce our workforce. We said that it wouldn't touch special education, and for the most part, it didn't. But we're looking at the service providers that we're no longer able to employ. So it's a perfect storm at this point. And to be quite honest, I don't know how we get beyond the perfect storm, but we must, by law, meet the needs of our students. And as long as this district is producing the work that we are, producing it in terms of the presentation that we're showing you tonight and sharing these results with the state works with us to give us those variances. A lot of districts don't get variances because they're not working to increase their environments for special education services, but we are actively working to do that. So that's the only safety net that we currently have.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, Dr. Joyner, Ms. O'Brien, and your team for this special education action plan update. My question comes from slide 20, Action Plan 2024-2025 accomplishments. Thank you for all of the accomplishments that you've made. And I want to address bullet 1. Further studied and developed a toolkit to support specially designed instruction, SDI. My question is, when do we plan to implement the toolkit? Who will have access to the toolkit? And what are the expectations of the use of the toolkit?
So the toolkit, as I mentioned in my presentation, was developed in collaboration with our special education teachers. There was a committee, district-wide committee, that convened and worked with our team, our leadership, to develop the toolkit. And actually, there was turnkey of that during our superintendent conference days. I don't want to misspeak which ones, but they did engage in actual teachers engaged in professional learning about accessing and what was in the toolkit and going through it.
Okay, and can you share with us a little bit about some of the things that are in the toolkit? Like, just explain what's in there and perhaps like, how we anticipate that it'll benefit the students.
Okay, so the toolkit is housed in our Google Drive. So it is fully digital and accessible for all from all over, right? It is defined by content area, so ELA, math, and it's also defined by grade band. So the tools within it are when a teacher is planning a lesson and want to plan a lesson in science, let's say, they can go to the toolkit to access the materials, as well as there's some guidance documents within there that they can access in order to plan their lessons for that instruction for the students.
Okay.
Yeah, for the student-specific needs, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So when you're doing specially designed instruction, you're considering the curriculum, but you're also considering the IEP, which highlights the student's specific needs, as well as your knowledge as a teacher of their learning styles. So if, let's say, a student is a visual learner, what type of visual representations do you need to provide, and how can you incorporate it into your lesson?
Oh, this sounds exciting. It sounds like, this would be beneficial for certainly the students with disabilities, but also E&L students and the general education students. And this would help us with the complexity of educating all of the students.
Yes, so there, during that same work time, I don't want to overspeak into the curriculum and in the CNI team, but the ENL director and her team also developed a toolkit and worked in collaboration with the team. So it was a comprehensive district-wide effort, but also within special education.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do any other of my colleagues have any comments? Ms. Klein?
I'll be brief. First of all, thank you. That was incredibly comprehensive. It answered many questions that I had since it's my first year on the board, and I do appreciate it. I'm very pleased to hear, that we're, meeting goals and that there's a plan. And I think it's important that the community sees, what's coming and how special ed has changed in the last few years. I like to say post-COVID. So I think it's really important that we're all aware and we're all working together on this. So thank you for your support, for everything. That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you guys so much. And then next up is our second discussion item, which is budget workshop number 2. And Dr. Reynolds, I'll let you set the stage.
Great, thank you very much. So you could not have a better introduction into our second presentation. So what do we need? Here's what we need. Last year, and I don't want to make this too lighthearted. Last year, we were in a position that has not been seen for quite some time as it relates to our finances. Gladly, again, I will reiterate from the beginning that all of our audits, both state mandated and independently requested, have placed the district in excellent standing financially in terms of how we manage the money that we do have. I also want to reiterate that working with, as Mayor Ramos says, our cousins in government, we are more fully funded as it relates to our payments in lieu of taxes and developments in New Rochelle. So those 2 items alone have put us in good financial standing. But we all know what's happening on the federal landscape and then on the state landscape. Last year, we had, again, just revisiting, we've received increases from year to year, and I always say that it compounds, right? So For the few years prior, we had an increase of about $8 million, another $8 million a year after, another $8 million a year after, and then $16 million increase, right? So outstanding support from the state. While that is the case, we are still not fully funded by the state. We still do not receive our full foundation aid. Last year, when we as superintendents asked the governor to relook at the foundation aid formula, what was accomplished was the governor actually changed only two variables within that foundation aid formula. And the two variables ended up hurting New Rochelle in particular. We were one of the few districts in the state that were hurt. When the variables were recalculated, it made New Rochelle look like we had more in property value than we did under the old formula. And it made the residents of New Rochelle look like they earned more, way more than they did when those variables were in the old calculation. Thus, we only received an increase from in the support from the state overall from last year to this year of $377,000. Again, 8 million, 8 million, 8 million, 16 million, 377,000. That forced us to have to take a look at our programming, have to take a look at our personnel. We did see this coming, and it actually hit us earlier year-wise as opposed to what I predicted. I anticipated we would be coming to that cliff at about this time. It hit us a year early, and we unfortunately had to reduce our workforce by 200 positions, and which equated to about, I believe it was about 35, what's our number in terms of personnel that we had to reduce? Number, about 50 or so personnel that we actually had to lay off. Gladly, because of reduction, because of transition and retirements and things of that nature, we've been able to call back many of those individuals, but we're still not at 100% of calling our employees back. They do remain on what's called the preferred eligibility list for 7 years. So if a position opens up in their tenure area, they have first rights to that employment. We cannot even post for that position until we contact everybody who has been reduced in force and inform them of this opening and invite them to take their position back. So that landscape was just last year, and here we are. And we are already hearing from the federal government that funding that is intended to help the specific children we were just talking about in our previous presentation, children who are have special education needs, children who are considered to be English as a new language or English language learners, individuals who might have some reading deficit and need some additional assistance in their reading instruction. Money that was earmarked by the federal government for those purposes have been reduced by the federal government by about 30%. That is where we're starting our budgeting conversation this year. So not only are we faced with the financial landscape of last year, we are already starting from another deficit. So tonight we are going to share a little bit more information. Again, we do not have all of the viable information necessary from the governor's office yet to present a full picture of our budget landscape, but we are going to begin our budget workshop, work session number 2, and we are going to be joined by our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Administration, Carlos Leal, and our Business Administrator, Ms. Joy Mike.
Good evening. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, President Iannuzzi, Vice President Ross, and board members. This is the second presentation of many to come, right? And so this will be somewhat of a repeat from the first because, as Dr. Reynolds indicated, we don't have all the information yet. So you're not going to see hard numbers yet, but so that you know where we are in the process. Um, you will continue to see these slides throughout our journey this year. And so this is, again, the budget process. We start with our guiding principles, which I will, again, share with this evening. Everything aligned to our strategic roadmap with specific areas of focus, sharing with you the variables, and of course, always asking our stakeholders to provide input throughout this whole entire process. And then we, of course, we get to the budget vote to determine where we go from there. So our guiding principles, again, are our vision, mission, our equity work, and of course, the focus on the whole child and how can we maintain a focus on this as we kind of massage the numbers to stay focused on what matters most, which is the student. The strategic roadmap, which you are all familiar with, again, aligned to the student learning support staff, staff support of connected schools, and of course, managing all resources in service to schools and departments. In terms of our areas of focus, when you think about what is informing us, it really is that student outcome, knowing that every dollar, every penny should be in service to supporting those whom we serve. That evidence-based and data-supported decision-making is taking place, that this is not decisions made in silos, but in collaboration and using data and numbers to inform that. Also leveraging attrition and retirement where possible. Decreasing external contracts, really looking internally to the experts in-house and asking how they can leverage the work so that we don't have to then ask external folks to come in and do things that we can do here in-house. And then staying within the state mandated tax cap, that is of course our desire. So in terms of budget development, there we go. Our approach, again, is to leverage the roadmap. We've already begun a conversation with all administrators across the system that we've decreased our discretionary spending by 10% right out the gate. So that is where we are. Maintain the current district-wide staffing level. So we are not talking about increasing that number. We're talking about how can we proceed with whom we have. And then continue to provide building allocations based on enrollment. And you will hear from Joy Mike momentarily on how that's been distributed. Ensure that building and department leadership budgets are within the allocation. We recognize that some have asked for additional items. They go on a separate list. Those are things that are not budgeted. You may want them, but you have to stay within your allocation of what was provided to you. And then, of course, a commitment to regular checkpoints throughout this entire process. We have started our one-on-one conversation. So after having met with all district leadership, informing them of where we are currently, we've started to sit down with each principal to say, here is the current landscape, here's what you currently have, tell us more, so that we fully understand, so that when we go in to deliberate as a cabinet, we are fully informed. And then review and approval of requests to maximize student outcomes and resources. Again, all focused on our student outcomes and utilizing our resources appropriately. So that being said, I will pass the mic over to Joy Mike, who will provide you an update on some of the variables that we currently have.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. So in terms of the budget variables that we have to incorporate as we proceed through the budget development process, one of the areas that we focus on, in addition to allocating funds for supplies, materials, contractual, those are all based on student enrollment. The district has established an equity allocation to be distributed district-wide, and that is based on enrollment first. So this slide shows you all of our school buildings and their enrollment as of Beds Day. Beds Day is the basic education data system date, which is the first Wednesday in October, where districts across the state will capture student enrollment in each school building. Our equity allocations for that overall district allocation for equity funding is distributed to the school buildings, not just based on raw student enrollment numbers, but also based on the demographics within those numbers so that students that have additional needs, maybe low income or may need additional academic supports, are weighted more heavily so that they'll get a larger slice of the equity allocation. And so that's what this slide sort of measures or represents. You'll see the high school's at 30% and Isaac is looking currently at 14%. Again, that's the percent of the equity allocation of funding, not the percent of the students in the building. This next slide is I believe, one that we presented previously related to the internal considerations as we go through the budget development process, those things that we do have some input in. There are some factors that I'll speak about that we really don't control, but in terms of the collective bargaining agreements for our union members, for the Fuse unit, for ANS, and the non-represented employees and our management and confidential employees, those agreements are pending and will be in the negotiations process this school year. Our staffing practices are being reviewed in terms of our 6-period assignments at the secondary level for coverages, our building substitute models across the districts, and then the optimal caseloads for our clinicians and service providers. We are looking to engage with best practices for our operational ratios, for security and facility staff, and also looking at staffing realignments as we learn more, as we have employees that may have submitted paperwork for retirement, just looking across the district on how we might be more efficient. We are planning, according to the class size guidelines that we, I believe, established last school year. Those will continue into 26-27. These are some external factors and contractual obligations that we don't necessarily have input on. These are information or inputs that we will receive. The teacher's retirement system rate has not been finalized just yet. We are hoping to get that this month, but it will be a slight decrease is what I have learned. The local retirement system rate for our civil service employees will increase 1.1%. So that's the district contribution to that retirement system. Our health insurance through the night shift plan will increase 11%. Medicare reimbursements and retiree benefits are also a factor as we have more people that go into retirement and then reach those age thresholds. And then our staff retirements, as much as we would love to control that, we can't. So we are receiving those letters and requests ongoing, I believe. The consumer price index, the projected range as of when we wrote this slide was between 2.8% and 3.5%. That does vary. It will be provided to us for calculation of the tax cap, I believe by the end of this month. But that rate, the final rate, will impact our transportation contract and also our BOE services. So we are also looking to or required to account for the anticipated impact of the charter schools that are slated to open in the city of New Rochelle. And there are 2 schools that we are currently planning around.
I'm sorry, can I clarify that? One has been approved, one is in the middle of.
One is in the approval process.
Yes.
That is correct.
Sorry.
Thank you, President Iannuzzi. And then the state and federal aid revenue, we have not gotten our state aid revenue numbers from the governor's office yet. We do anticipate that to occur before the end of this month. So there are a lot of variables that should sort of solidify as we get to the end of January. As we mentioned in our previous presentation, we are anticipating a reduction in our state and federal grant allocations. And so for the formula grants, specifically our Title I, II, III, and IV grants, we are anticipating or planning for a 27% decrease. And for our IDEA, Section 611 and 619 grants, we are anticipating a 15% decrease. So, and we will continue to learn more as we move forward. Westchester County sales tax is a variable. It actually has increased over the years, thankfully. And then our use of appropriated fund balance, which is really just using district savings to mitigate the impact to the taxpayer. And that's it for our variables at the moment. And I will turn this over to Mr. Leal to finish.
Thank you, Joy. To give you just maybe a clearer look at the grants themselves, we provided the titles of each of the grants that we currently receive on the left-hand side, and then the allocation that is projected for 26-27 on the far right. The 25-26. So the chart itself shows you the allocation in 23-24. 24-25, 25-26, and then what's projected based on that reduction of 27 or 15%, for a total of 6,541,349. So as Dr. Reynolds indicated earlier, we're going into this conversation with an assumption that those dollars will not be part of our equation, unfortunately. So I think it's important for folks to understand that. And then just to provide clarity on those grants and what they do and who they service. Again, as Joy had mentioned, 611 primarily supports our special education program for our school age students with disabilities. 619, also special education related to our preschool age students. The local government records management is really just moving from paper to digital, which we don't have any dollars allocated for that. My brother's keeper, designed to improve and support some of our students, specifically at the high school, and I believe we have moved that into the middle schools. Title I, this is with school improvement dollars, and Title I specifically is supplemental dollars to improve academic achievement. Title IIA, training recruitment efforts. It's also used for a reduction of class size for those dollars there. Title III is specifically for our ENL supports for students who speak a second language or come in with a language other than English. Title III also supports our immigrant students. Excuse me. And then our Title IV, student support academic enrichment. Title IV actually supports both well-rounded education, but a focus on the use of technology in the classrooms. And then, of course, the teacher center, which we do not manage those dollars specifically. We do have a teacher center. And so those dollars, of course, would also decrease. And then the universal pre-K dollars that we receive, that is for both the service that we provide in-house and also pay to our external partners. And then always in the back of our minds is where were we and how did we get here kind of scenario, which we talked about quite a bit last year. So we truncated the list, which was, I think, about 10 years we provided previously, just down to the 5. So just to kind of do a quick recap for this past year, in 25-26, the calculation worked itself out so that in theory, we could ask for 0.33% to our community. And that just was not going to be enough because the dollar increase would be $762,000. And we would have to reduce a heck of a lot more. And so we engaged with the board, and the recommendation was to go back out at 3.95% for this past school year, which is the same percent from the year before in 24-25. And that was able to allow us to bring an actual dollar increase of $9,147,962. And so collectively, the difference would be $8,385,597 of an increase using tax dollars. And you'll notice where we are currently, and we've shared this before, and we'll continue to share this at the next couple of meetings. Our intent, of course, is not to go above the tax cap. That is not how we're walking into this scenario. What we need to do is find out what are those external variables that are going to influence what our revenue is, and then make the best informed decisions possible and bring those back for consideration. And of course, the roadmap moving on from today is we will not be presenting at the next board meeting, I believe on the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll be back on the beginning of February, February 3rd, for work session number 3. And our hope is that at that point, we will have all the information, all those variables will have now come in-house, and we'll be able to make a full calculation to provide you with those numbers again at the beginning of February, followed by a session number 4, February 26th, a work session number 5 on March 12th, and then another work session on number 6, March 26th. But that's also the same night that the board would adopt a proposed budget. And then we would move on, engage in conversation with the community. If the vote is a positive, for a budget hearing on May 5th, and then the budget vote itself on May 19th. And I know that Millie has already started working diligently on that, because that is a huge undertaking. So thank you, Millie, ahead of time. Here's a picture of the calendar of events, so to speak. Simultaneously, the top of the arrow are currently the meetings we're engaging in, so that folks understand that things are happening in-house and externally. The items underneath are the board meetings and the work sessions that we will engage with you, so that you have an understanding of what we have done and where we are going. We've already met with principals and district leadership, and we will continue to do that throughout this process. That being said, we encourage our community to please give us input and feedback at community meetings, definitely here at BOE meetings, but definitely at the budget hearing. And please review the budget presentation. And if you have any questions, please send those questions and emails to either the BOE at nredlearn.org, or we've set up a specific email for questions specific to this year's budget process at budgetquestions@nredlearn.org. And then, of course, like as I mentioned, attending board meetings and watching archive videos, et cetera, to be fully informed. So thank you. And now we are open for questions and discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ross.
Again, thank you as usual. I appreciate getting ahead of the budget in the process, and even having these kind of before we even began the new year. I have a couple of questions. One is, I know that last year it was the state, the way that they made their calculations. And so whatever the aid is that we received was lower than in previous years. Like, I think the percentage increase was very small, and we only had, what was it, like $700,000 that was come from the prior year. When in the budget process do we get that calculation and that number back from the state?
Well, our hope is that we'll get a run of the first run, should I say, at the end of this month.
Oh, it's the end of January?
Right? February, like, should be the end of this month. We're hoping by the 22nd, but I don't want to give a date specifically, but
Yeah.
that's why we're saying if we get our items and our variables by the end of the month, come February 3rd, we'll be able to provide to you numbers.
Okay, at least in terms of what we expect from revenues
Correct.
coming in from
Yes.
the different pieces. And then regarding the budget snapshot grant funding on page, I guess it's 16. Was this just your estimate, or how do we know that it's coming down by this amount?
So basically we're looking at everything. We're reading
Okay,
statements coming
Mhm.
out from Congress, anything that we can get our hands on to kind of get a sense of what's going on, whether it's our colleagues in discussion with other business administrators, or journals or articles that are coming out from the state, not BOCES, I'm just going to say BOCES. The Southern Westchester, not Southern Westchester, our business Questar and, oh my goodness. School Business Administrators
Yeah.
of New York. Thank
Okay.
you. ASBO, oh my goodness, ASBO sends out regular communications and
Okay.
says, hey, guys, here's the pulse of what's going on. Here's what's trending. Here are the numbers. Here's what we know so far. And so that is how we're continuously being informed.
Got it. And then one last question is, and maybe I'm just trying to find several silver linings, but on page 14, when you have sort of the different increases that we're expecting in costs, and of course, everything is going up, is will we be able to put numbers to like what a 1% increase will mean or an 11% increase, or when will we expect to see what that means?
So we certainly will have numbers for like specifically retirement
Yeah.
increase and health insurance increase. And we will be able to compare from year to year. I want to say that cautiously because it depends on the mix of your employees as to what the benefit costs will be. So
Mhm.
not everyone has a individual health insurance plan. Maybe they switch from individual to family. And the number of civil service employees versus the number of pedagogical employees and their salaries will drive our retirement system costs.
Mhm.
So currently, as the slide shows, we expect for the civil service employees that contribution rate to go up 1.1%. So that will definitely be an increase, but we are waiting for the final TRS or rate for our pedagogical employees, which I do anticipate to be a decrease.
Okay. And then I guess similarly for the health insurance premium.
That number is already out.
Okay.
It's because our insurance rates start from January 1 through
Oh,
December 31. So that when we budget, we have 6 months at the current rate and then 6 months at an increased rate. So that increased rate for January 2026 was a 11% increase.
So we already budgeted for that for part of this year as
Well,
well?
as part of the budget process, I budget for the current premium amount for 6 months, and
Okay.
then I project an increase for the second 6 months so that we have sufficient funding, even though I don't have a crystal ball to know exactly what the rate increase will be.
Got it. Okay. And then the last question is you mentioned the charter schools that are coming in, and I know we put money aside for this year in this year's budget. I don't think that will materialize. Will we be able to kind of take that money and hold it into next year?
We'll let Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you very much for that question. So we've already allocated that
Okay.
money to other uses within the district in order to bring individuals back that were laid off.
Okay.
We do still have a portion of the money that was budgeted for the charter school to open this year in reserve. We can encumber that money and we can decide what we're going to do with it. Either bring a few people back, or we can roll it over to the next year.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands. We currently are paying for other students to go to other charter
Yes.
schools. And so that number could still increase, right? If folks are choosing other options other than two that are probably taking up airspace.
Okay. So there's always some part of our budget regardless.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other of my colleagues have any questions? Ms. Williams?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Liao. And thank you, Ms. Mike, for this presentation and to your team. My question is going to slide number 12, and is the equity allocations by building. And when we look at that number, the total amount of students in our public school building, I believe, is 9,868. And that's a decrease from, each year seems to be going down. So my question is, what is being allocated to students who are not attending our public schools? Do we have that information?
We do not have an allocation for students that are not attending our schools. We are funded based on the numbers that we have on beds day. It drives almost every state aid metric that we receive. It's based on your enrollment, and the statewide, everyone looks at that beds day date for enrollment. But I do want to say that 9,868 is a snapshot on that first Wednesday of October. On the first Thursday of October, that number might have been different. And
Um,
I would certainly anticipate that today, that number may be a little higher. We do have cyclical change within the district enrollment annually. So that number varies. It is a moving target. However, we must budget based on that attendance state snapshot because that's how we get funded based on those numbers.
And if I may add, historically, over the past few years, the number that we report to the state on Beds Day is a low number compared to the number that we end with at the end of the year. So while we're working on a budget that's dependent upon this number, we will actually be serving more students with that dollar amount than what we anticipated.
And, funding, as we know, funding for public schools comes from a mix of local property taxes, state formulas, and targeted federal programs. So, I mean, how else can we raise money? Through private institutions, grants from private organizations? Is that something that is feasible? Or is that something that we will look into that would help us?
Unfortunately, as a New York State public school organization, we cannot raise funds. We can't solicit funds. If there are times where we are able to receive donations from the public, those donations are minimal. We can't go to any corporations to receive any additional funding. The one thing that we do benefit from that I shared at the beginning is the revenue that we receive from the city for the payments in lieu of taxes for the developments. So that's an additional funding that we do get. And as I said, the city government has fully funded us over the past few years. I would say the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years. So that's the only additional revenue that we're able to receive.
Thank you.
I had a similar question, and so not to repeat the question, but it's just specifically focused on the federal cuts, and obviously that's going to impact not just New Rochelle, but many large surrounding cities, and it's obviously a highly politicized decision. Like, do we expect there'll be private endowment is not the right word, but private institutions that come to fill these gaps and in a way of grants that would support some of these districts?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Many of the grant provisions are actually federal funds as well. And we're seeing many of the grant providers having their grant funding cut as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is our public comment period. I'm going to read a brief statement. If you haven't signed up, please, you can pass to the clerk your sheet of paper. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to convene into the public comment period of the meeting. The Board of Education adopted Policy 1230 in April 2022 to ensure all members of the public had the opportunity to speak at both of our board meetings each month. We believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, understand the board will not respond to your concerns and questions tonight. We take your concerns and questions seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. We will, however, respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. I also want to point out that under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel and students. Please know, however, that we take personal concerns very seriously. On these matters, we would actually go through the appropriate administrative channels. Finally, we recognize that right now our nation and our community are polarized on a number of issues. That said, we want our school board meetings to serve as an example to our students that members of our school board and members of our community can deal with controversial issues in a civil manner and demonstrate mutual respect for one another. In that spirit, we will insist that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. We ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. In the unlikely event the meeting becomes unruly, the board will recess the meeting and return once order has been restored. Finally, I want to remind everyone that you may submit written comments to the board in lieu of speaking during the public comment period if you so choose. Tonight, we've set aside 45 minutes for public comment, where each speaker who has signed up before 3:30 today has 3 minutes to speak. If a person requests to speak after 3:30, speakers may sign up in person at the meeting with the clerk and will also be afforded the opportunity to speak. Our first speaker of the night is Ms. Sharon Foots.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Foots. I wanted to say at these meetings, we keep hearing transparency. We will be transparent. In the survey, it uncovered that transparency and not information not being properly disseminated to and in a timely fashion. Information wasn't given to the specifically the ELA community. Um, I'm trying to figure out what has changed in all of these meetings that I have been to and the ones that I haven't. And then I ask what will change. Our student population has shrunk significantly now at 9,868 students. I was just made aware that that number could change even as of today. That means that we're spending approximately $36,430 to educate and support a student, which seems like a lot of money to still not be having services for these students. What are you doing about that? I tend to look at how the schools are ranked by looking at apps like home buying apps, right? Because they tend to show a different picture of how the schools are rated. And people don't want to come to a city where the school district is failing. So when I look at schools that are rated like Columbus, a 6 out of 10, Trinity, a 5 out of 10, Nershaw High School, a 4 out of 10, it is disturbing. Now, when I look at the budget variables, right, I do see that in certain schools we're ranked like obviously expected. Webster is a 7 out of 10, Albert Leonard and Ward. Great job, you guys. What are we going to do to get those other schools up to 7 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s? With this data and research that we spend so much money to, and we talk about these strategic roadmaps every other meeting, I don't see where it's getting us. When I look at the budget variables for the equitability allocation chart, I wonder, but it's also interesting that schools like Columbus, who are allocated 11%, also failing, not failing, but low scored. Schools like Trinity, 10%, and what was the other one? Nershaw High School, 30%. These are the same schools that are rated 6 and 5 and 4 out of 10. I don't really understand why this is continuing to happen. I have 29 seconds. What do I want to talk about? Oh, I know you all know that I'm a big fan of the charter schools. So I thought it was interesting that it was stated here that you all still receive money for children who are going out of district to go to charter schools, right? And you will continue to see, you will receive money and you might receive more. But I found it also interesting that one of your things about these charter schools coming is that they're potentially taking away from the district. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to sign up for public comment tonight? Mr. Seam? Oh, it's you, Mary. Mary, you're good.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. All right, good evening, Miriam Desim. So I listened to the special education. It looks really detailed. I hear a lot of numbers and measurements, which is always good to hear and see. I don't get it all. So my when I hear this, I hear a lot of improvement, but in talking to folks that I know about that have interacted with special ed, two things come to mind. Like, for example, I know this one family that recently tried to bring the child back to the district. She took her out and put her in charter, tried to bring the child back into district. She's only been gone for about a year or so. And it took us like a month to get her in here. And one of the issues was the fact that she does have an IEP. We don't have the records anymore for some reason. We were delaying. She has to be tested. She had a language before. She was taking a language in charter. We didn't want to give her a language now. It was just disturbing. I know when we were in a committee before, we said that it shouldn't take a child more than 3 days from the time they register, you prove them in, that they should be able to go to school. For it to take a month for her to get to school was so unacceptable. In talking to my cousin that has a child of special needs, she had to put on her gorilla suit to get the support that she needed. And it was obvious that he did need support. So I don't see a lot of the improvements that are here. I don't know who answered this, but I don't see it when I speak to the special needs folks. And then the other thing about special education is in this last budget cut, we were losing excellent special ed teachers, teacher aides, and we let them walk out the door. But we need them and we can't find them, and we didn't do what we needed to do to keep them. That was very disturbing. So those were my things until I can get into bigger details with this. Now, the other thing with the budget that we talked about last month, or at least I brought it up. So you have this and you're saying this is your bed day. So give us the numbers, give us a range of the numbers of what it could actually be. So we have a better idea that it's not just one day. Even that's what you got a budget for, give us that number. Looking at these again, it's not the population you're saying, it's, looks discrepancies, but so tell us what is it based on so that we see how this equity matches up, because the numbers are very lopsided to me. Isaac E. Young is 14% equity, but only like 10%, just about equal as Albert Leonard. Albert Leonard gets 10% of equity. We got to explain this better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desim. Would anybody else like to sign up for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into our consent agenda for personnel resolutions. Colleagues, can I get a motion and second to approve consent agenda for personnel resolutions number 26-247, 1 through 4, number 26-248, 1 through 1, number 26-249, 1 through 11, number 26-250, 1 through 5, number 26-251, 1 through 5, and number 26-252, 1 through 3, according to the recommended action for each item.
So moved, Ross?
Second, Jacob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is our consent agenda for general resolutions. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to approve consent agenda for general resolutions number 26-253 through number 26-262, according to the recommended action for each item?
So moved, Clayton Fernandez.
Second, Ross?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next meeting will be a committee of the whole session on Thursday, January 22nd at Isaac Young Middle School. And colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
Second, Ross?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?